Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Art Drentlau, who is the founder of Responsible Agreements. Art, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show today.
You're welcome, and let's get started with telling us a little bit about your background and what led you to this entrepreneurial venture.
Okay. Well, it all started when I was in the Navy, and I ran a simulated prisoner of war camp for men that had a chance of being captured in Vietnam. The training was very realistic. In fact, we had actual returning POWs that would review the training to make it as realistic as possible. And I was amazed at how easy it was to brainwash people, even in a simulated situation. It was positively amazing to me. So I set about that. I wanted to find out what this was all about and how it could be done and how the human mind works and what's really going on. And then years later, I was sitting in church, and the minister was telling a story about a man who survived the Nazi concentration camp of Auschwitz. They said one day he looked out, and in a crack in the concrete, he saw a flower growing. And he said, if that flower can survive here, so can I. So he set about the rest of his internment in the concentration camp, studying the behavior of the guards and the inmates. And when he got out, he wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning and became a world-famous psychiatrist. And he would tour America. This is the part that fascinated me. He would tour America and say, we need to build a statue of responsibility to be a companion to the Statue of Liberty, because freedom and responsibility cannot be separated one from the other.
Was that Viktor Frankl?
Yes, that was Viktor Frankl. And he would go on to say that this is a very necessary thing. So I wanted to make the dream come true, and I started planning it in my mind. And then every once in a while, I would look online to see if anybody else had picked up the idea. And lo and behold, I found a group that was starting in this. So I joined up with them, and now we're going to make that dream come true. We're going to build a 300-foot-high statue of responsibility, and it's going to be located on the West Coast.
And what is going to be the visual representation of responsibility?
Oh, that's a very good question. Because when I first saw what it was, I wasn't too enthralled with it until I heard the story behind it. But what it is two hands that are clasped together, and if you look at it, it's like one coming down and one coming up. You can go online. If you just Google Statue of Responsibility, you will find it. But the story behind it is very interesting because the sculptor was commissioned, Gary Lee Price. He was commissioned and he came up with the idea. And so they wanted to make sure it was compatible with what the Frankls had in mind. Victor had already passed away, but they flew over to Europe because Mrs. Frankl was alive, and they showed her the sculpture. And she got very emotional, and she said, you need to come with me. And they were led into Viktor Frankl's study. And here amongst all of his books was a little alcove in the wall, and he had a statue there, a hand carving out of wood of a man reaching to the heavens. And she said, Victor would always remark, where is the hand reaching down? And now you bring me this sculpture. So he knew that this was exactly what was needed.
Yeah, that's really neat because you look at things from two different perspectives. You know, you can say, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? And then you can see all the creative, things that people come out with that example. But if Victor had the hand reaching up, well, where's the hand reaching down? And so both of those symbolize, the need for reaching out and then the help for reaching down. And you've heard the saying, I don't need a hand up, I need a hand or I don't need a handout, I need a hand up. Well, now here's people that can be going back to their hometowns where they grew up and give a hand up to some kids that need some mentoring, or many things like that.
And kids are going to be very involved in this project. In fact, the first thing that's kicking off is an election for president. This is done every year where the kids vote in a mock election for president of the United States. And we're kicking that into gear right now. The other cool thing that we're going to do is the statue is going to be made out of recycled aluminum. And we're going to have fun drives where the kids can go around and collect aluminum cans and turn them in to be, smelted down again and put into the statue.
Yeah, that's really neat, because then that encourages some engagement, and I'm sure you can go really creative on that and have them write essay contest, or what is their vision of or view of, and I think that would be really, really neat.
Yes.
So where do you see that going? Let's say that's launched and up and running. Where's the Statue of Responsibility? Does that then become, just a movement? Where do you see that going in a 5 to 10 year period and beyond?
Well, we're going to turn this in. It's not just the statue. It is a movement of responsibility, and responsibility not just from the guilt trip standpoint, but also from the point where it's made up of two words, response and ability. And to every thought that we have, there is a response from universal law. Not a lot of people know what's going on with that, but we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And universal law responds to every one of those thoughts. And this is part of the process of creation. And we'll be explaining this further in what we're going to do.
So the thoughts are things, that kind of gets into, the law of attraction. It gets into things where even in the simple forms of just thinking positive, you wake up and you say, what a crummy day today's going to be. You're going to invariably find something negative, stub your toe on something and say, see, I told you, when in reality, if you look for things that were positive, just that outlook. So I think that, the laws of physics and the spiritual laws you're referring to, quantum physics, things like that, I think that kind of, can be way above the heads of many people. But I think when you bring it down to people just relate and will understand, well, just have some good positive thoughts. And, I was telling, I gave one of my kids just the other day a compliment just in passing, and I wish I had a camera, video camera on his face, and it was just an immediate brightening of his countenance. I mean, just amazing what a positive comment or a positive thought can do, even for other people.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. I want to tell you one other thing. This is going to be a really great day. We're planning right now to dedicate the statue in the year 2020 on the 4th of July. And on that day, we want to form a human chain of people, arm in arm, that starts at the base of the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor and follows historic routes across the entire United States until it gets to the West Coast and links up with the Statue of Responsibility. And we need over 6 million people to be on that line.
That's amazing. I would love to. I can just see the news stories on that, the helicopter view of the camera view of the people just all across the country, and reporters reporting in from different spots and talking to the people and getting their input. I think that's a really, really amazing goal. Yes,
I live in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, which is near Akron, and I want to get the Goodyear blimps involved and have one of the blimps on either end, one hovering over the Statue of Liberty and another one hovering over the Statue of Responsibility.
And so let's think about something from, you think of the ripple effect, you think of the butterfly effect and those types of concepts. I can imagine that when that goal is achieved, it's almost like a marking in time where you can look forward and say, look at some of these positive outworkings that came from this movement. What are some of the specific things that you would envision seeing that this statue of responsibility will be responsible for bringing to effect?
Well, when the project is complete of the statue itself, we are going to start a university of responsibility, and we're going to have classes on responsibility, and they won't be just from the, you have to do this attitude or the guilt trip attitude that responsibility normally conjures up in people's minds, but also what we spoke about a little while ago, where there is a response to every thought that we have. So the university will be involved in bringing that about. And I see this as a way to lift the consciousness of the entire planet.
Sure. Yeah, I can certainly see that. So on your website, you have a freedom test. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. Everybody on the planet is born free to think and believe and act as they choose to, and they do. As an example, no two people have, like fingerprints as example, no two people have the same fingerprints, and no two people have the same DNA, and no two people have the same thought process. We can think alike on certain topics, but no two people have the exact same thought process. We're all born completely free to think, believe, and act as we choose to, and we have to allow people to control our lives. So we make agreements with ourselves and other people to allow these things to take place. So the name for the company, Responsible Agreements, is going to be involved in that. We need to learn how to make responsible agreements because, as you know, with the law of attraction, when you think about things, you say, well, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, you're still attracting it to yourself. You have to be on the other end, like you just said, on the positive end of it. And if you don't want something to happen, you have to see the exact opposite of it taking place and give no thought to the negative side of it.
Well, and what are your thoughts, too, about something that I know I've read in the past, and it seems to make sense, but I'm sure there's some reason behind it, but it's kind of like, I don't want to gain weight. Well, your mind hears gain weight, and it almost counteracts the I don't want to aspect, and you should be saying to yourself, I am physically fit, or whatever the case is. So can you speak to how kind of even some of that, word structure goes into our minds?
Yeah, the every thought is a vibrational. Every thought is vibrational. So these thoughts can form a vibrational pattern that gets locked in your DNA. And one day you can make a thought and it goes out of your mind completely, but it's lodged in there. And to give you an example, one day I noticed my father, and he was sitting on the edge of his bed. And I noticed and said to myself, he never gets sick. And I said to myself, well, I never want to get sick either. And I didn't realize what had happened right then and there, but I made a very profound marking in my soul, so to speak, and that set it up. And I didn't think negative thoughts from there on. I didn't think I was going to get sick from there on. And if I did, it went away very quickly. So they can lodge in there, just like we were saying, just like you pointed out.
Yeah, and I think that you find yourself, it's almost like a very natural thing when you come away from an event or a gathering or whatever, and it's like, did you see so-and-so? And I couldn't believe how they, and it's just natural to, criticize or, gossip or whatever you want to call that, but I find that very frequently I'm able to turn the conversation around, let's say my young kids and say, hey, what did we find that was good about that? Well, they were, and so it kind of helps to diffuse and kind of keep that attention focused that way. And I know myself, I keep a gratitude journal, so you can't get every single thing that happens throughout the day, but whenever you have something that's good and positive, and you can write that down and put a quick date in there, then when you can go back and review that over the last few months, it becomes these very encouraging things for yourself because it's your own experiences, but it also pre-programs your outlook to be watching for things that are good rather than bad.
Exactly. And those all form strengths in your mind. We say that the thoughts go by very quickly, but the longer you hold that thought, the more energy is added to it. And a thought starts out, and when you think that same thought over and over again, it forms into a belief. And then the beliefs are harder to get rid of down the road. They become habits, and sometimes the beliefs turn into actions. And so if you can switch from a thought, a negative thought, and get right back to a positive thought and not hold on to it, it doesn't build up energy. But what you were just talking about builds up the energy of the good thoughts and the good actions and the good deeds.
Yeah, it really does. And it really is something that is almost like a muscle where you have to work it and work at it, and then it gets conditioned, and then it becomes easier. You think about, if you were, going jogging and you could one day jog around the block once. Well, maybe after a little bit of time, you can jog around the block 1.5 times, and then maybe 2 times. And it just becomes easier, and you think back, wow, I can remember I couldn't even get to the end of the street, much less around the block twice. And that positivity mindset is hard because I think we're pre-programmed to put other ideas or people down because it inside of us makes us feel bigger and better, but in reality, people don't like that. People really recognize and notice when someone takes a good view of something. So it once you get kind of that momentum started in your own self of watching for and commenting on positive things, it does become easier, but you're never perfect. You never get it solved, and about the time you think that you've got it conquered, then that's, watch out.
Right. The longest trip we ever take is a guilt trip. You want to get off a guilt trip as soon as you can and get back to say, oh, that was just a thought I had. It's not right, and get right back to feeling good. You don't want to stay on a guilt trip. They're no good for you.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm sure we could continue this conversation for quite a long time, but I just love your focus on the statue of responsibility. If people are interested in learning more about becoming part of that 2020 event on July 4th, what's the best way that they can reach out to you and learn more?
Okay, well, if you go to the website, all you have to do is Google responsibility, the statue of responsibility, it'll come up. Or they could go to my own website and contact me, which is responsibleagreements.com. Or they can email me at responsibleagreements.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Art, for this time that you gave us to learn more about your initiative. We really appreciate that and wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much. You have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.